Okay, let's jump right in. We usually read the Gospel of Luke like it's a story, a biography of Jesus. And it is. But what if it's also something more? What if it's a really carefully built argument, designed piece by piece to prove a world-changing point? That's what we're going to dig into today. The brilliant structure holding the whole story together.
I mean, think about it. It's a huge question, right? If you really believe you have the most important news the world has ever heard, you don't just tell it, you build a case for it. You lay it all out so that your audience can't possibly miss the point. And that, as it turns out, is exactly what the author, Luke, seems to have done.
You see, Luke wasn't just a historian cataloging events. He was more like a master architect. Every single story, every teaching, every miracle, it's all like a brick being carefully placed in a much, much larger structure. He's taking us on a very specific journey, and he's basically handed us the roadmap.
But hold on. Before we start following that map, we have to ask a pretty important question. Can we even trust it? I mean, how do we know the Gospel of Luke we're reading today is what was actually written 2,000 years ago? Well, the answer is pretty fascinating, and it takes us into the world of ancient manuscripts.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. When scholars look at these ancient copies, it's not about who has the most. See, the vast majority of manuscripts we have today are from a later period, from what's called the Byzantine family. But scholars give more weight to the earliest ones, like those from the Alexandrian family. Why? Well, they come from a tradition in Alexandria, Egypt, that was known for its super careful, almost literal copying. So it's a classic case of quality over quantity. So you might be wondering, okay, if the early ones are better, why are there so few of them? Well, history gives us some pretty clear reasons. First, you had severe Roman persecutions, where Christian texts were targeted and destroyed. Then, centuries later, something similar happened across the Middle East and Africa. And on top of that, the Greek-speaking Byzantine region just kept making Greek copies for centuries, while other places switched to Latin. All of that helps explain why weighing the early manuscripts is so much more important than just counting the later ones.
Okay, so we've established the text is reliable. Now we can get back to that master plan. When you look closely, Luke's gospel breaks down beautifully into 5 main sections. And it's not just a geographical journey, it's a theological one, building an argument step by step by step. And here it is, the 5-part structure. It kicks off with the introduction, then moves to Jesus' preparation, then his big ministry up in Galilee, followed by this long, long journey to Jerusalem, and finally the climax in Jerusalem itself. Each one of these sections is designed to move the story and the argument forward. So let's start at the beginning. Right from the get-go, Luke puts 2 people side by side, John the Baptist and Jesus. He lays out their stories in parallel, their miraculous births, their destinies. The structure makes the point absolutely clear. John is the great preparer, the forerunner, but Jesus is the fulfillment of everything God had been promising. He is superior. Then, in part 2, before Jesus even starts his public work, Luke establishes 3 absolutely essential things about him. 1, he's anointed by God's Spirit. 2, his family tree goes all the way back to Adam, which makes him a representative for all of humanity. And 3, unlike Adam, he is faithful when tempted. Basically, Luke is showing us that Jesus is uniquely qualified for the mission ahead. Now we hit the longest section in the entire gospel. And this whole massive part is really centered on one single question. Who is this man? Everything Jesus says and does in the region of Galilee is designed to answer that very question. And how does Luke answer it? Well, it all comes down to one powerful concept: authority. And this isn't just a small side note. It's the engine driving this entire section of the book. Luke sets out to show, piece by piece, that Jesus operates with a kind of authority nobody had ever seen before. And the evidence he presents is just overwhelming. I mean, look at this. Luke shows Jesus has authority over nature itself, over the spiritual world, over sickness, and even over death. He even claims the authority to forgive sins, which everyone knew was something only God could do, and he declares himself Lord over the sacred Sabbath law. Luke is systematically building this undeniable case that Jesus' authority points directly to his divine identity. So, once Jesus' identity is firmly established, the story pivots. He literally sets his face toward Jerusalem. And this long journey section is packed with his teaching. He's laying out a new way of what it means to follow God. And you know what? It puts him on a collision course with the established religious leaders. Now, get this. This is just incredible. Almost half, 49% of the stuff in this section is found only in Luke's gospel,
We're talking about 15 unique parables, things like the Good Samaritan and the prodigal son. You have to ask, why? Well, Luke includes all this unique material to draw a sharp contrast between Jesus' new way of love and humility and the old way of power and tradition.
Finally, Jesus makes it to Jerusalem. And from any normal human point of view, this is where everything falls apart. Betrayal, arrest, crucifixion, it looks like a complete and total failure. But Luke masterfully frames this entire section to show us that what looks like a tragic defeat is actually the most important moment in God's entire plan. This quote just nails the incredible irony Luke is showing us here. You think Jesus is the one on trial? Well, while the human leaders are judging him, what's really happening is that God is vindicating him, proving that he is the true Lord and the real judge. Their verdict, ironically, is what helps accomplish God's ultimate victory. So, after this whole 5-part journey, where do we end up? What's the final destination? Well, Luke doesn't just stop the story, he ties his entire argument together with this really cool literary technique. It's a device called an inclusio. The easiest way to think about it is like bookends on a shelf. Luke starts his gospel with the theme of all the Old Testament promises finding their fulfillment in Jesus. Then, at the very end, he brings that exact same theme right back, showing how Jesus' death and resurrection were what the scriptures were pointing to all along. It's a brilliant way to frame the entire book, making sure you never lose sight of the main point. And this right here, this is the ultimate takeaway. This is the whole point of Luke's incredibly detailed structure. Because Jesus has been proven to be the Messiah, because he has been established as Lord over everything, the message of salvation is no longer for just one group of people. It can now, and it must now, go out to all people, everywhere. So you see, from the nitty-gritty details of ancient manuscripts to this grand 5-act structure, Luke builds a powerful and unshakable case. He lays out this incredible journey that moves from apparent rejection to ultimate victory. So the final question really is for us. In a world still wrestling with those very same ideas, what part of that journey speaks the loudest to you today?